Hey guys, Matt Bell here with episode 4 of Improv for Violinists. Trust you've all been practicing the pentatonic scale shapes that I gave you last week. So this week we're going to talk about tips and tricks so that you'll know which scales to use when. All music is based on chords. I don't know if they taught you that or not, but all music is based on chords. Think about the three B's, right? You got Bach, Beethoven, Britney Spears. They're all based on chords. With Bach and Beethoven, you don't need to know what the chords are because your part's written out. You just play your part, everybody else plays their part, and the chords sort of fall where they may, okay? If you've been asked to take a solo on Toxic, then you'll need to know what chords Britney's band is playing, because she's certainly not playing anything. But you'll need to know what notes to play, so you need to know what chords they're playing, all right? So you've been practicing, you know all your pentatonic scales, you're ready to take a solo. You watched the video I did for Electric Violin Shop, linked somewhere, that we tell for basic solos, you want to land on a chord tone for the chord, and then use the scale for that chord to work toward a chord tone for the next chord. So if we're in A, you're going to land on A, C sharp, or E, and then you're going to work around the A pentatonic scale. And if we're headed to E, you sort of work your way toward either E, G sharp, or B. Does that make sense? Okay, watch that video if that doesn't make sense to you. But how the heck do I know what chord I'm on or what chord is next? If you're in a worship band, they've given you a chord chart. Just read that, okay? If you're in a bar band, they're not giving you a chord chart. They told you what song they're playing and they told you what key it's in, all right? So let's say that you've been asked to play Wagon Wheel next weekend. And you go, awesome. What key are we in? And they go, we do it in A. Okay, fine. For pop songs, and for our purposes, we're going to say rock, country, pop, blues, R&B. The three most common chords you're going to hear are the 1, the 4, and the 5. Okay? 1 is the key that you're in this case, A. Now, because this is Improv for Violinists, I'm going to show you how to use your instrument to find out what the 4 and the 5 are, okay? So let's play an A. That's the root key. Go down a string, that's the 4. Because a 5th up is a 4th down. Okay. Or a 5th down is a 4th up. That's what I meant. So A, you go down a string, that's the 4. Go up a string, that's the 5. So in the key of A, D is the 4, E is the 5. Okay? Let's do another example. Let's pick my favorite key, F sharp. So play an F sharp on a D string. Go down a string. That means the 4 is B and the 5 is C sharp. So F sharp, B, C sharp. Easy. My favorite chords. The fourth most common chord is the 6 minor. So you just take the 5 and you just go up a whole step. Obviously that's the 6 minor. Most pop songs pretty much only use those 4 chords. It's the truth. You might get a 2 minor or a 3 major minor here and there, but for the most part, 1, 4, 5, and 6 minor. Play the odds. It's almost always one of those 4 chords. Okay? You've been told to play Wagon Wheel in A. I happen to know for sure, but you can guess that it pretty much only has 4 chords in it. A, D, E, and F sharp minor. And that is indeed the case. So you want to learn the progression in that song so you know which chord is coming next. That's what we call a chord progression, is when you know what a list of the chords and how they follow each other is. Okay? So how do I do this? There's 2 easy ways. One is to Google Wagon Wheel chords. I'm going to advise you not to do that. 2 reasons. 1, the people who post these things are often wrong. And 2, how are you going to learn to do this if you just go to Google every time? It really is an important skill if you're going to be improving. And it's important because if you chart out, say, a dozen or 2 songs, you will start to hear how these things work, and you will start to find patterns, and you won't have to go through this exercise that many times, okay? So here's tip number 1. This is not always true, but it's often true. The first chord of the song is often the 1. Okay, so in this case, we're going to pull up a copy of Wagon Wheel, find it on YouTube or iTunes or whatever, and make sure it's in A, because that's the key you're going to play it in. If not, you can just work out whatever key it's in, use the number system to transpose. Okay, but say we found it in A, the way you're going to make sure is, since the song almost always starts on that chord, you're just going to pluck an A arpeggio, and you go, okay, yeah, that sounds right. It sounds like we're in A. It sounds like I'm in the same key as the song. So then let the song play. When you hear the first chord change, then you can pause it if you need to. But since most pop songs only use 4 chords, and you know that it was the one, it's no longer the one, it's got to be one of these 3. So you just experiment. Which one of those 3 is it? Is it D? Is it E? Is it F sharp minor? In this case, it goes from A to E. So you're going to, yep, that's the right one, okay? So that's how you're going to confirm that. You're going to play that arpeggio. So then you hear the next one. It's not an E, we just left E. Certainly doesn't sound like we went back to A, so now I've got a 50-50 chance of guessing. You see how this works? So then you just start, as you figure out what the chords are, just write them down, all right? So Wagon Wheel generally starts with a verse. And what you discover is that in most cases, whatever the progression is for one verse, it's going to be the same progression for all the other verses. It's not a rule, but I'd say 90 and way over 90% of the time, if there's a progression that's verse 1, it's the same progression for the rest of the verses. Okay? The chorus often has another progression, although in Wagon Wheel it's the same progression as the verse. And remember, verses and choruses have a tendency to start on 1, okay? Bridges often start on the 4 or the 6. Not always, but if you're guessing, play the odds and go with those first. Another hint, listen to the bass player. Bass players in music like this almost always land on the root of the new chord. Okay, they may move around from there, but they almost always land on the root. And they will often telegraph where they're going. Right, so he walked up from the 1 to the 5 in that case. And you'll often hear, you'll find as you listen to the vocal line and you listen to the bass line, they almost always triangulate in on the new chord, okay? So those are some tips for figuring out chord progressions of a song that you've been asked to play. Then you just use the technique I outlined above, where if it's in A, you know, the chord is A, land on a chord tone for A, muck around in the pentatonic scale for A, work your way toward the next chord, E, land on a chord tone for E, muck around, work to the next one, okay? That's not super advanced soloing. We're not breaking any musical ground here, but you are improving, and 2 weeks ago you were not improving, so that's an improvement. We will get more in depth and give some more tips and tricks in the coming weeks, but that's your assignment this week. Pick a song that you like, because you're going to have to listen to it a lot, and write out the chord progression. Sit there and figure out what the chord progression of that song is, and use the tips that I gave you. There's usually 4 chords. It usually starts on 1, etc., etc. Okay? See you guys next time. Woo!